Ooh. It's a bit of a slow start today at the Mere Mortals here. Mere Mortals Meandering session, folks. But one thing that is exciting is we are back out at South Bank.
Yep, we're back
enjoying being able to view the Brisbane city in front of me and seeing so many people walking around. And what I'm not enjoying is having to pay for parking again, struggling to find car parks. Unfortunately, we went through a period where you could park for free all over the streets, which was quite nice. That's suddenly stopped, and also there's a lot of people out today. So, in any case, that's just complaining. But in a meandering session, we like to philosophize about life in general. We like to talk about things that are on our mind, perhaps things that we want to clarify. Kyrin on the mic. You got one over here from the Mere Mortals. Let's talk the first point, and you might be thinking, why do our voices perhaps sound a little bit more gravelly, a little bit more deep baritone? We went karaoke singing yesterday, which is a big thing. And something that I was talking yesterday, just before karaoke, was with our mutual friend Brady, talking about the video that I've recently been putting together, and this is the CrossFit documentary. And I started just throwing out like numbers of how much content I'd put together, how much like videos I'd actually done, etc., etc. And I found myself in that being like, okay, I'm just throwing out random numbers here, not really knowing exactly how much out. So I thought, okay, on the walk here, before we did this podcast, I was like, okay, I'll lay it out, perhaps some learnings from doing the CrossFitorian little documentary type of deal, and exact numbers for people at home to play along, just so you know what the back end and the setup was. So, roughly, I should say, exactly, I had 9 different sessions where I basically did...
Just before that, man, what's the video, what's the point of it? And it's released the day before this, so there's a link that you can see.
Correct.
But, yeah, what's the video about?
So the whole point, it's the purpose was, so personally for me, I thought I wanted to do a documentary / podcast conversation of some kind for a while now. I was thinking about doing this last year when CrossFit was going through their Torium Pro, and I'm thinking, perhaps I could do a little video series. That would be pretty fun. I like watching some of these videos. I want to get amongst it. So the only opportunity came around to do it this year. I went, okay, cool. That's like an opportunity that I want to do. At the same time, the whole purpose of the video was trying to showcase a whole gym's... I wouldn't say the whole gym. I'd say specific people within the gym performing the CrossFit Open at the same time as giving a little bit of backstory around what was the workouts like, what were they doing it, what were the reasons, and trying to include not just people who are like the main coaches, but other individuals as well throughout it, and just splice it all together with some content. That's basically what it is. So if you do check it out...
So it is very... it's not our normal video format. It's highly edited. It's... you said you wouldn't be releasing it as an audio because it's...
Correct. It's too video intensive, right? Yeah. So let's talk some numbers. So I'll put some numbers up. There was 9 sessions that I did of to video, interview people, or the like. 9 separate sessions. Now, I'm going to say, and this is rough now, some of these numbers, but roughly I would have done an hour's worth of content or video or audio footage each time. So let's just roughly guesstimate it. Let's just say 10 hours.
10 hours.
So 10 hours of the 9 sessions. So that's 10 hours of just like flat out content. Now, if I would have roughly, let's just say, prepped 30 minutes either side, so that's 30 minutes to set up the cameras, set up the microphones, put the computer ready, get the thumbnails, prepare to it, afterwards take it all down.
Leave the camera in the gym.
Leave the camera in the gym overnight. Have to go and collect it the next day.
Freak out the next day because someone's moved it and you think for like 20 minutes it's been stolen.
That could be a whole completely different thing. But essentially it was half an hour on either side. So now we're talking an hour's worth of content each time. So we're saying 10 hours content.
Yeah.
Now let's say half an hour each side. So that's another hour on top of that. So it's 20 hours of my actual effort put in to actually producing this documentary of 10 hours worth of content. So that's 20 hours we got there. Now, I had 3 massive sessions where I edited the actual documentary itself on Premiere Pro. Now those, each one would have been roughly about 3.5 hours, 3.5 hours. So I like non-stop. It was like one of the days I started at, it was like 11:02 a.m. and the next time I looked at the clock, it was 2:05. It was like, there was no stopping in between. I was just like, whoa. So 3 massive sessions, so let's say 9 hours, and little give and take a few extra. So 10 hours. So all up, in terms of this video, there was 10 hours worth of content, another 10 hours worth of like prepping and whatnot, and another 10 hours worth of editing. So 30 hours. 30 hours went into this video, and all that conglomerating it down to a 24-minute video. So a 24-minute video in essence, with lots and lots of little like pieces, bits and bobs all thrown in together. So each minute equates to about like more than an hour. More than an hour worth of effort per minute. So I wanted to all like link that all the way back to, now it's interesting because this is YouTube, but I wanted to link it back to value for value, right? Okay. So I wanted to give our listeners at home, I guess, the mere mortalites out there, and anyone else listening, that when you're thinking about like some of the podcasts we put together, now our podcasts are not that lengthy and that voluminous in terms of effort, for sure, guaranteed. But there's still effort that goes behind these, right?
Yeah, I'd estimate about 4 to 5 hours each episode.
Yeah. So almost
maybe a bit less. 4 hours.
Sometimes,
Let's say 4 hours.
In a couple of ways. So one, you could kind of like backwards calculate how much you're spending in if you put like per hour, what am I worth? You can kind of calculate what it is that you're actually doing. But when you watch that video, maybe it's interesting to know for people who watch it. It's like, oh, per minute you're getting more than an hour's worth of effort per minute of content that you're watching on that thing. To be like, whoa, okay, like that's pretty hectic. There's a lot of effort that's going behind some of these things that most people just don't see. What it also gave, so a couple of learnings from the video, appreciation for like how good a really good video is. I'm not talking like CrossFit here, just any video that's got good editing, good music, good light. Like you either have like years of experience to put things together and get it right, but just the level of editing and getting things right from that end, man, that is like multiples beyond like what obviously I've put together. And I had to actually take a pause myself and go, okay, I could probably do another 10 hours worth of editing and get this to 3% better, let's say. 3% better. But I knew that, in comparison to like a really good video clip out there, ours from the mere mortal is going to be 60, like if there's like a 9 out of 10 quality, ours is going to be a 6 out of 10 quality. But like I could spend 10 more hours to get to 7 out of 10, but there wasn't going to be a countable amount of hours to get it to a 9 out of 10. Like that wasn't happening because you'd have to have like at the very beginning just such like precision with what you're wanting to do and everything else. Another learning that I took away, though, it's very different to obviously us doing podcasting, is that in a podcast, like we just come here, we just sit down, people just come along, we're just talking to people, easy. Like it's not, we're like hardcore preparing for it, although we do have an idea of what we're talking about. Like I just came up with all of this on the walk here like 20 minutes ago. But in those ones, you have to have such preparation early on, and it really pays off if you get it right. And I prepared maybe 2 hours, about 2 hours before I actually did a lot of it, like any of the first initial videos. And I even did like test videoing with people and prepping to see like what light should I use? Should I just use no microphone, just a camera, things like that? And even then, it would have probably paid off if I did 20 more hours worth of prep. But I guess that comes with just doing it. So I think, and then my final learning for this, biggest learning, is I kind of went to myself, I went, would it have been valuable if I spent another 10 hours to get the 3% extra on this to make it a 7 out of 10? And I go, actually, on the whole, I think not, because now that I've like, okay, cool, I've gotten it out this month, which feels like, oh man, weight lifted off my shoulders, because that thing was heavy work. And I go, okay, cool, now that I get it out, I'll get whatever feedback that comes from it. Sure, if I'd done an extra 10 hours, maybe I would have reduced some of the feedback and be better quality, but what it does put me in a position is like, oh, I feel confident to do another one again if I really wanted to, and it feels like it didn't take like every bit of energy of this whole month to be able to put that together. So it'll be interesting to see when it comes out if it makes me go, oh, maybe perhaps I want to do something similar with VCon. So in my mind I went, okay, now I've just done this, could I make something out of the trip that I'm going, right, and do a little bit of what I'm in LA, a little bit while I'm in VCon, try bring that out. I'm going towards a no.
Yeah.
Just for the meme all the time. Yeah. But because I publish this out without putting that extra effort, it feels like I could do it. But if I'd spent that extra effort, I think I would have paralyzed myself with the fact that it just took so much.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, well, a couple of things from that. First is value for value, so people go watch the video, first of all. Links are everywhere, and share it with a friend if you're into CrossFit. And
even if you're not into CrossFit, just go watch it.
Yeah, go
watch it. There's a lot of good stuff in
sure.
there.
Agreed. The one thing I'm curious to know from you is what do you think the reaction will be, and will you be disappointed if it's not the
most watched video that we have? Well, actually, this was interesting.
We've done this before with the
1,000 push-ups.
1,000 push-ups and the other challenge that we did. You put a lot of effort into those, but it just... I wouldn't say... They didn't do badly.
Well, okay,
but,
here you go.
They weren't kicking off. I guess.
So I did say to you, I'm like, man, I'm putting so much effort. Like, this better be the most watched video we've ever created. Now, am I going to be disappointed if it doesn't? There's going to be part of me that I go, oh man, I did spend a lot of time. However, now you call it out to me, one bit that I was really excited about was I went back and watched the 1,000 push-up challenge video that we did, and now I look back and it's similar in like so many different places. Coding, other things where you should be improving. Like I look back and went, man, there was so many shit things that I could have done way better then. And I could see how I stuffed up this and I could have done that better. That's good. That in doing this, I went, oh man, there's a lot of learnings that I've taken away that I've improved massively to do this thing now.
Yep.
Where similarly, what I hope to do is releasing this, looking back and say another year and doing something else and be like, oh man, I can't believe like I didn't do this and this and this and that, blah, 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 blah. Cool. There's the improvement that I'm actually looking for. So I'm probably attaching myself more to that than the sheer quantity of views, I think. For
sure.
So,
and you know, views is a crappy metric because, like Adam says, Adam Kyrin all the time with podcasting, it's like, grow your podcast. Like, man, fuck growing your podcast. Grow your interactions, fun interactions with people. Grow the impact you're having on the world, perhaps. And, you know, just because you have more numbers, like, don't mean shit, really, because, you know, you could get tons of views by just publishing some really fucked up shit, but you know it's clickbaity. So
yeah, and I mean, again, so we talked about this like ages ago on the podcast, but I do think that let's fast forward 20 years and let's look at the most optimistic way possible, that we get down a path where, you know, AI has come in and taken on a lot of jobs. We have either UBI, Universal Basic Income, or we've got something equivalent where everyone's like just in such an opportune position where you don't really have to work too much. Now, what becomes really valuable then? And I still think it's, as a human, storytelling, being able to tell a story, putting together, I guess, something that people consume and have real entertainment from it, that becomes like a real commodity. Because if you can do that, wow, everyone's going to be consuming it because everyone's got all this spare time to actually be consuming it as opposed to be working. Now, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, I don't know. I don't care. But it makes me think that doing these sort of like little series, now you asked me at the beginning why. I think I keep thinking more personally. I go, well, personally, I could see myself trying to do something like that once a year, let's say. Not as a challenge, not as anything, but as maybe two things. One, improve my way of storytelling in that format or in that sort of medium, I guess. Yes, we do it through speaking, we do it through like writing and the like, but I think it is a hard skill, but a good skill to learn, to understand how to piece together lots of different pieces or conversations or videos or whatever else, and put it together into like a consumable sort of snippet, however long it may be, that people will actually want to watch. Because I think that also lends itself to helping you create just tell stories or talk to people and everything else.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Cool. Yeah, well, I'm keen to watch it myself and give you some feedback, and yeah, if
the feedback's bad, though, me and more lights, don't tell me for a couple of weeks. Just leave it to yourself for a while. Yeah, drop it in the comments. It will be a premiere. So you're saying this, because this podcast going to come out the day before.
After.
There you go. Well, you should have watched it already.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. You should have watched it. If not, go watch it.
Pause this, go to that one, watch it, then come back.
Correct.
Cool. Yeah, well, it'll be fun times to see what comes out of it, I suppose. And I'm just so glad it wasn't me doing it.
Yeah. Man, you...
I want to bring up something related to giving advice. So this last week I met a new friend at the park.
Yes.
I tend to make a lot of friends. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
For sure. So there's a young gentleman named Benjamin. Juan met him the other day as well, very briefly. And the thing with Benjamin was, first of all, hey, what's up if you're watching? The thing with him is he was so like me. Probably one of the people I've come closest to being like, you're like a really young version of me. So he's, I believe he was 20 years old. He said early 20s, something like that. And, you know, just chatting with him for probably about half an hour of solid conversation we've had over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
made me just be like, man, you know, very just so similar, man. He was shy growing up. He, you know, I don't want to get too into his personal story, but it was just like
there's a lot of similarities.
We'd connect over things. I'd say something, you know, super specific about staying up until the early AM reading manga or something, and he's like, man, I did the same with YouTube. You know, it was just almost identical things. And what I noticed from this was I wanted to give him advice, and I don't normally do that, and especially like unwarranted advice. So like I'm pretty against. You're pretty
anti-advice.
I'm against. I'm totally, if someone asks you for it, yeah, hell yeah, give you advice/opinion. But you know, when you see someone making a steak, when you see, you know, a friend who's starting to, maybe they're like taking drugs, and you see sort of a path they're going down, and you're like tempted to say something, or you're like, oh, that's not the best way you can be doing that, whatever it is. You know, maybe they're with a girl, you're like, oh, I'm not sure about that. I'm pretty against saying to them things and being like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, particularly that sort of thing. But this was one of the only times I've really been tempted to go, oh, you shouldn't do that one. You shouldn't. I'm talking about you putting your fucking your hand in my video. But with him, it was there, and I was wondering, okay, why is that, and what's triggering that? Because I've met other people similar to me in many respects. You know, Brendan similar to me in many respects. Another park friend, Michael, who's sort of similar, but he's maybe like half the age. I think he said he was 26ish. And I wanted to just get your opinion on it first, and then I'll ask you like some particular questions around giving advice and things like that. Does anything come up for you?
Well, the one thing that does jump out is, I'm just trying to compare it as well to see if I've like encountered this as well, but when you meet someone who's either very similar or going through a similar path that you have, and so because it jumps out at you, you go, oh, I remember exactly when I was like that, and I do remember some of the things I did to not do that, I guess. And if that person is still in that exact spot, then you could be like, actually, yeah, that's where maybe it sounds like you want to give advice, because you're like, look, I've been in that exact same position. Let me kind of share with you my story, so maybe it like helps you. So I do get that. I guess the opposite side of it, obviously, that giving advice, even if it might feel that way, it's like, are you just generalizing it, or are you telling yourself that story that it's like, yes, it sounds really similar, and I'm going to tell you what I did as an advice, but then maybe you're missing another point that hasn't been shared just yet that actually influences that. So, I mean, as long as I'm not as anti-advice as you are, but I'm more on the side of not direct advice, just sharing of information or sharing of the story of like maybe perhaps you went through as why you're giving that, and not say like, oh, do this, but on like, hey, yeah, I did that too, and I did this, and this, and this, and that sort of helped me out. Take it as you will type of deal. I don't know. I'm a little bit different because I'm not anti-advice, but I'm just, as long as you like produce it correctly.
To clarify, anti unasked for advice, anti unwarranted advice, more leaning towards opinion rather than actual fact.
Yeah.
So, have you met anyone who's you think, man, that is essentially me? That's a young version of me.
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think so. I was trying to when you was sort of explaining that, I'm like, oh, have I come across someone who I would say is like a young me? Not really. And I don't. It's highly likely that I'm not actually engaging with a lot of young males, to be honest with you. Like I'm trying to think in my mind, apart from maybe some people at the gym, but then I don't know them really well enough. Maybe there's been one or two people online, like either VFriends Discord or otherwise, that sound like they have some similarities, but no one like how you compared Ben. Then like not to that level where I was like, oh man, like yeah, you exactly this, exactly that. So no, not particularly.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with the age. I think that was the main thing. It's just really looking and being
like if they were 28. Like if Ben was 28, would you have also been in the same mindset of like, oh yeah, I want to give you this advice?
Probably not. No. I think it was just related. It was particularly probably because he's right at the age where he's like it's funny. It's almost like if I could invest in someone, I reckon I'd want to invest in him as being like, I think he'll do well in life, and like whatever you want to put that. I met him at the calisthenic park, so I would be willing to bet like, yeah, he'll probably get strong if he just continues on, because he displayed qualities where I was like, yeah, I think he'll he'll stick with things. He seems motivated. He seems like he's consistent.
So here's my question to you. So say someone like that. So you felt like giving advice or giving an opinion or giving some sort of words of wisdom. Now, I'm just wondering in my mind, one, why? What, if you really search within you, why is it that you felt like you wanted to do that? Is it to his betterment, or is it to fulfill something that you wanted? But two, what do you think would stop you to being like, oh, why wouldn't you call that almost a level like, oh, maybe I want to be like his mentor style? So give me that. Do you think it was more fulfill your own needs, or because you had this thought for him being like, oh yeah, because I want him to succeed, so I can see like myself would have wanted to succeed the same way? Yeah.
I don't think there's anything for it, particularly in me. I don't particularly enjoy being like teaching or that sort of role. That's not really for me. I've never enjoyed having that sort of power, I guess, if you want to put it in those terms. So I don't think there's anything in me that, maybe the only thing would be like, oh, it'd be nice to almost fix some wrongs that I did in the world, for example. So, staying with a girl who I shouldn't have stayed with way too long, and it'd be nice if I could almost fix that mistake vicariously through someone else. If not that that's happening to him, but it would sort of be like, yeah, this is something that could happen,
But I could hear somebody out there listening and be like, well, isn't that a self-serving thing? Isn't that you trying to self-serve yourself?
And that's what I mean. Yeah, that you could say that.
Gotcha, okay.
as being a selfish thing. But yeah, honestly, I think the most of it would just be like, the world would be better if he did better as well. And this is like one of the situations where I'm like pretty fucking confident that I know how he would maybe react to certain situations, or how if he went down a certain path like I did, that path wouldn't be optimal for him. So something like that.
Okay.
So anyway,
actually, a follow up because just around this mentor thing. So I'm just interested. If somebody, so it's two parts. One, if somebody asked you, or like say in that situation, you guys were talking with Ben, and he was like, "Look, could you be like, for lack of a better word, could you be my mentor and help me out in these sort of ways?" Would you say yes or no? Because I know you don't like teaching that much, but if someone asks you directly, so that's the first question. But two, do you think you would ever feel so strong as to be interacting with someone to actually be like, hey, I want to be your mentor and help you out?
Yes, for my brother, for example, but that's because we're like so close. There's a evolutionary stuff going on there. Yeah, I don't know, man. The mentor. There's something about that word I don't particularly enjoy either, and I'm not sure what it is, being a mentor.
Yeah,
I've never heard that and been like, man, that's something I really want to do. Yeah, and why would that be? Is it because I'm lazy? Is it because I don't want to connect with someone? Is it because I'm not sure.
I was thinking about this because for a long time I was trying to find a mentor. Like when I was younger, like say 22, 23, 24,
Gotcha.
like working, and like LinkedIn used to have this feature where you can find a mentor, and it would just like throw up random people, and you could like scroll through and be like, oh, I pick you, let's catch up for a coffee.
Okay.
I've been at workplaces where they did the same thing. It's like, pick a mentor and you can connect over a coffee. Now,
yeah, gotcha.
In every single one of those situations, it was always completely shit, or I never caught up with them, or they never really interacted. It was like,
what was shit about it? What?
Well, they connect, like it was the equivalent of like, just picking a person that
like it felt shallow in a way.
A little bit shallow. I mean, you were judging people based on like, here's this person's name, look, what they work in, or what's their experience and what they want to help you with, right? But normally with a mentor, you want to like, you normally have to have a connection of like, oh, I see similarities, or I really care for the reasons. So can you imagine like a random person reaching out and be like, oh, this person's now your mentee, right? What is like really for you the value of like, oh, yeah, I'm going to help them out, apart from the pure just like, I'm going to do it for either the purpose that like I get awards through this from a work perspective, or you're really, really not self-serving. You're like, oh, I just want to help out as many as possible. But it's like, if you don't have that connection, it is hard to do that at the same time. So I never find like, at least with the people I interacted, that I had like much of a connection, even though I just picked them because it was more like at random. But I think we should normalize, maybe perhaps, not using the mentor word. I would actually go down the path of, to Zelensky, supporter. So actually, if someone asked me, oh, could you be my supporter, right? And I would view that a little bit differently in the sense like, oh, okay, cool. You maybe value me enough that you want to share things with me or share ideas, almost like a sounding board sort of style, and you'll support them if they have ideas, thoughts, or things that they want to do, or just to share like experiences or the like. But you're not so much, that like level of mentor where it's almost like the guiding light or something like that. Because in reality, it's like, nah, man, we're all mere mortals. Like, we're all just completely shit in all different ways. Never think that someone's just like got it completely figured out and whatnot. So I'd be like, oh, supporter sounds good. I like the word supporter better. It's like, if someone came up and was like, oh, could you be my supporter? I'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool. I would support you.
Gotcha. Yeah. The other thing is I've never had the desire for a mentor whatsoever. So that also probably plays into it a little bit. Yeah. So sort of somewhat related to this topic as well was that other guy I was talking about, Michael, who's sort of the mid guy between Benjamin and me almost. He was saying he sometimes just gets something in his head and will think about it for a while, like he'll just ponder it. And he was thinking recently about same thing about advice, but psychologists in particular. And it's been said that psychologists, a lot of them are psychologists to fix their own mind, essentially. Like they're all sorts of fucked up, and so they want to learn about the mind, and then it's sort of like a vicarious way of fixing themselves by fixing other people. And he was wondering, is someone who themselves is maybe broken, or how much can you trust, or what is it good, just say good in general, if you get advice from someone who can't follow their own advice? So the drug addict who tells you not to do drugs, or the person who
the
tells
personal
you
trainer
need to,
who's obese.
Yeah, or you need to save money and they're broke, and whatnot. So what it got related to this was, I was just thinking, like just that aspect of giving advice out. What situations was it? Is it like useful? What would your thoughts be as well about like the source of the advice? How important is that to you? Is it more important if it's from someone you trust, or do they need to like show that they can follow their own advice as well? Like, do they need to prove it?
I mean, at the surface level of that question, I go, yes. Like straight away, my mind popped up like, yes. If someone tells me, like the financial example, if someone's a financial advisor and they're like broke, or they're very close to broke, or they have no idea how to do it personally, then my first initial impression is like, why would I trust them if they can't do that? But I don't think that is the case. If I'm just thinking it through more deeply, that doesn't have to be always the case, because I'm thinking like, even me personally, like, we were just talking about this before the podcast, I have a budget. I haven't been keeping to that budget, right? So I personally haven't. But it's not like I couldn't tell you the information of how to do a budget and how to set up a budget and how to follow it. Like, I can do that. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that I shouldn't trust the information that comes from me? Perhaps if it was a longer term trend. Again, you might not know whether the person who's sharing that information, like all the details again, like say it's a really obese personal trainer, but they're telling you all these details, but actually it's because they have some sort of disease or something else that doesn't allow them. Perhaps there's that. Perhaps there's enjoyment more in the theoretical than in the actual practicing. Again, I say maybe there are some deficiencies that you're missing there. I think ultimately I land with whatever. I think I would... It's hard, but it's more like I would trust the information or accept the information that is most readily going to turn into you taking the action to reach the point.
Yeah.
So I go, let's go to the example of a financial advisor who's really broke. If they told you information and while the information might be true and the right thing, however, because of who they are, how they actually behave individually, stops you from taking action yourself because you don't trust that, then that information is probably not going to be as great as someone who, let's say, is really well financially off, tells you the exact same financial information, but then you actually take action because you have either a built-in trust because of the, the validity or the trust that you see in them because they've already succeeded themselves in whatever they wanted to do. So I go, as long as the information allows you to take the action appropriately, then it's a good information source. Then I'd say, yeah, okay, I would say that. So there might be places where you would think that, oh, that doesn't seem trusting, but maybe others would go, oh yeah, but I'll still take that action. Cool, okay, fair enough. Like I think, I'll pick a random one. I think if someone came to me who wasn't a chef or who wasn't a real great cook, but they were like, oh, here's this recipe to make a really good creme brulee, I'd probably be like, okay, and like maybe they make it easier for me to take the action. Cool, okay, I'll trust you even if you're not very good, because I'm also like really shit. But there might be other options where, unless this person's like really, really good, like I'm not gonna particularly take action no matter if the information you tell me is really, really true. So, you know, if someone comes along and starts shilling an NFT project or something like that, maybe it'll be like a really hard ask for me to take a particular action unless I completely validate that they're like absolutely on point, top trusted source, something like that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, the key word there for me was action, and this is what I was saying to Michael. I said, I don't really care about what's behind it, I guess. It's more what it produces. So, you know, if you had the most evil person in the world, but they were just so incompetent that they were actually doing good in the world, I don't even care that the evilness is in there. Like if they're just, you know, they're trying to be as evil as possible. They're trying to, you know, maybe they're like, oh, I want everyone to, you know, die of diabetes or something, and so then they start feeding all of Africa. It's like, okay, well, I don't really care that you're trying to be evil. You're having noticeably like good results in the world. But yeah, then it's just like, I guess, the proof aspect of it. So how when it's a just like a random thing being chucked out and there's no previous like case studies of it or like this is how this works, that's when it's more essential for the source to be good and sort of like at least have a case study of one being like, yeah, this is what I did and it worked, and then I can be sort of like, oh, okay, I get it. But if it's you know, the obese personal trainer and they're just like, this is, I can show you all these videos, I can show you there's these studies that were proven that, you know, energy metabolizes in this way, and this is why maybe eating in this particular manner will be good for you. I could be like, okay, I can take that. I can accept that, even though it's from someone who's obviously not doing it themselves, not putting it into practice themselves.
Yep. But
there is a strong aspect of I want them to be doing it as well. Like I would prefer them. There's a funny thing as well. I can't remember why it came up, but have you ever heard of Chesterton's fence? It's a sort of like
Chesterton's fence.
Yeah, sort of.
I
like
have heard of it. I can't remember the details of it though.
Okay, so I'm bringing it up as we speak. But Michael brought this up, and I was just like, "What the fuck is that? I've never heard of that." So it's a principle related to reform, and this is sort of, I guess, with advice, which is like, if you're changing something, you want something to be done differently. And it goes like this. So, the principle that reforms should not be made until the reasoning... Oh, geez, that sounds awful. I'm finding a better one than that. Fucking hell. So, in the matter of reforming things, says, what the fuck? All of these are useless. Essentially, it was talking about a fence, and it was saying, like, if you come across a fence, your immediate thing shouldn't be that fence needs to change. It should be like, you should understand for how the fence got built and it was in there in the first place, and then once you have that understanding and reasoning behind it, then
make the decision to take
then
the fence
you can
down.
say, and this is why. With all that being said, this is why it needs to change. So yeah, if you're trying to reform the world or like give out good advice, it's like,
be informed as to what you're making that decision for.
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
For
sure.
I think it was something to do with Chesterton's fence. Like, I had heard that. I know there's more details behind it, but I mean, in the whole process, I think it's know it enough as well. Like, know the details of the proverbial fence enough so you can make that conscious. Obviously, you're not going to know everything, or else the world would just stand still.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last thing I wanted to bitch about here was domain names. I promised this.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Not too long ago. Yeah. So, like I've said, I've set up the Value for Value podcast under its own domain, v4vpodcast.fun, and because it's very fun, people, and also the cheapest.
Fun.
And I'd had in my little like notes here of ages, probably been in here for a year, which was like investigate namespace, and in particular getting your own domain name. So have you ever set up, you did the Mere Mortals one, so you had previously had the practice of knowing how to like use the CNAME service, go to a domain name provider, buy it, so that was my first experience of doing that, and fuck me, I hated it. I hated the whole process of getting it, paying for it, deciding like, oh, is this security, looking at like the tier structures, and then it's the opposite of, you know, most normal things where it's if you pay more up front for a longer
it's
period.
A discount. It's the other way around.
So essentially if you pay for a year's worth of service, it's maybe, you know, most of them were around like the $15-20ish dollars for a year. But if you wanted to do 2 years, it's not
more expensive.
It's not 20, it's like 50 or 80 or something like that, and it just progressively goes higher if you go to 5 years or 10 years. And I was just thinking, like, this whole thing is so fucking stupid.
You know why? You know why though, right?
Yeah, it's because people like domain name squat, or they want to buy other people's...
Yes, but you're making it sound like it isn't at a discount. It is a discount, because when the second year rolls around, you got to repay for it. They charge it way up the wazoo for you to keep it the second time around.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So your domain names will go up in price in terms of you keeping it around. And so if it's a really popular one, they're going to charge you, like, they'll be like, we want $4,000 now.
Yeah, and so this is all the things I was investigating. Technically, I was reading they shouldn't do that. They
shouldn't.
It's sort of in the one's winking very heavily.
Shouldn't do it.
It was sort of saying like they shouldn't be able to do that. Also, they shouldn't block you, or there shouldn't be a fee for you to switch from one name provider to another one, because for this exact situation, if they're charging you out their ass, you should be able to switch. But then it's like they shouldn't, but
who's saying they shouldn't?
Who is? And this is where it's getting to like the stupidness of namespaces, which is essentially people getting together to create a set of standards. So the podcasting 2.0, they have the podcast namespace. So they're creating a set of sort of rules, which it's like everyone should abide by this. If you're ingesting an RSS feed, this is the code this is how you should use this code. This is how you should structure it so that everyone can understand, like, oh, this is where the name of the podcast is because it's in these certain brackets, things like that. And then I went down the rabbit hole of, what was it called? ICANN, if you know what that is. So that's I guess the namespace, I'll look up the actual acronym for it, but it's essentially the governing body who says what can be a domain name. So I wanted initially v4v.podcast. Now, it took me a little while to realize out of all of the ones there, .podcast isn't actually one. Do you know how much it would cost to be able to get a .podcast?
How much?
About James Gridlam was mentioning this. About $500,000.
Wow.
In British pounds, I believe that is. So that's probably even more in dollary dues. And so that is you, and it's just like, wait, who am I paying this to? Why do I have to do this? And it's just it's essentially because they got there first. They created the monopoly, and now that's why everyone has to pay for domain names, which is like, it's just so fucking stupid.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
man.
and so the ICANN. Let's see. It is the. Why can't you just come up initially? Fuck me dead.
It's still getting you even to
the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers.
Fuck.
And this is completely centralized. It's American multi-stakeholder group, non-profit organization. Yeah, you have to pay $500,000 if you want to get .podcast.
Oh man, not for profit though.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And yeah, so just like the whole process that I went through to just get it.
It's painful.
Just to get V4V podcast.fun made me feel gross, man. Just made me feel like, man, there are people making so much money here for words. They're not protecting me any. I imagine there's one of the ones where they're like, we're doing an essential service, we're protecting the internet, we're providing this standard so everyone knows that if you type this in, this is what'll happen. But yeah, I
feel it.
I came away just being like, fuck this. So there are, it's like, okay, Kyrin, well, quit bitching about it. What are you going to do about it? Well, there are like alternatives in a way. So there are one of the things with the blockchains coming out. I think it was Filename? There was Filecoin, which was it's sort of related to like IPFS, which is the interplanetary filage system, which is being able to store data decentralized in different places. So there are ways of doing it, and I will investigate it. The pain there will be it's not easy.
Yeah, it's new.
It was roughly easy to get a domain name. I still even would have said that was that easy, but you can blog how to buy a domain name, how to set it up, how to link to your server. This is where it should go. But there's not any of those sort of blog things. You have to just go down the rabbit.
Learn about it.
Yeah. I know Kieran Nolan was into this sort of stuff, and he'd bought a whole bunch of them when they were first doing it as well, and then forgot to pay to renew it as well. But then it's like, once again, you're paying someone somewhere.
Not for profit.
Yeah. Jesus. That was the, fuck, I should take a photo real quick. Describe what just went past.
Oh man,
it's too gone.
No way it's gone. But anyway, just we tried to describe this last time.
Yeah, we tried to. Yeah.
Just it's a mini spaceship. It's a UFO. It's a UFO.
Mini spaceship.
It's a UFO.
Going down the. I was thinking about this the other day as well. There was a guy riding a scooter, but the wheels. It was one of those scooters where it's sort of like you can sit on it almost.
Oh yes, yeah.
And he was doing it along the footpath, but the front wheel was this thick, man.
Oh.
I was just thinking that's if he runs into someone at speed as well, because that thing probably could have got up to 50 k's an hour.
It's like a small car hitting.
Yeah. That's just it's a small car.
It's a motorbike.
It's a motorbike just driving on the footpath. It's like, okay, are we allowing this now? Like, look at that thing as well.
Yeah,
is
that
you can
allowed?
run over a small child with that thing.
Who knows, man? All right, we're gonna leave there.
Lots of bitching today.
Folks. Yeah, it's a bitching. Lots of conversations. Lots of little things. We're going to tidy it up nice and quickly. We are a Value for Value podcast. We have already talked about this a little bit, but if you haven't already tried, send through a Boostgram, go use Fountain, join the other Mere Mortalites who are doing it. We are likely going to put some value back to the people who support us as well. We were talking about this.
Check out our marketing episode, which came out.
I've got a lot of other bitching as well that I'm going to do, but I'll do it at some other point.
Nice.
That's related to a little bit of this, but go check out the marketing one. I think we'll probably talk a lot more about Value for Value and things there. So go check that out. That's going to be my call out. For now, we're leaving it there. Mere Mortalites 1 out.
Kyrin out.
Woo. Good.